This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Chapter 49, A Storm in Tyr, and our symbol is the dice, appropriately. Egwene finally returned to the table in her tea. She thought perhaps Elaine was right, that she had gone too far, but she could not bring herself to apologize, and they sat in silence. When Aelwyn returned, she had a man with her, a lean fellow in his middle years, who looked as if he had been carved from aged wood. Julin Sandar took off his clogs by the door, and hung his flat, conical straw hat on a peg. A sword-breaker, much like Hurin's, but with short slots to either side of the long one, hung from a belt over his brown coat, and he carried a staff exactly as tall as he was, but not much thicker than his thumb, and made of a pale wood, like ridged joints, that ox drivers use for their goads. His short-cut black hair lay flat on his head, and his quick, dark eyes seemed to note and record every detail of the room, and everyone in it. Egwene could have bet he examined Nynaeve twice, and to her, at least, Nynaeve's lack of reaction was blatant. It was obvious she knew it too. Aelwyn motioned him to a place at the table, where he turned back the cuffs of his coat sleeves, bowed to each of them in turn, and sat with his staff propped against his shoulder, not speaking, until the gray-haired woman had made a fresh pot of tea, and everyone had sipped from their cups. "Mother Gwenna has told me of your problem," he said quietly as he set his cup down. "I will help you if I can, but the High Lords may have their own business to put me to soon." The big woman snorted. "Julin, when did you begin haggling like a shopkeeper trying to charge silk prices for linen? Do not claim you know when the High Lords will summon you before they do." "I won't claim it," Sandar said to her with a smile, "but I know when I've seen a man on the rooftops in the night, just out of the corner of my eye. They can hide like pipefish in reeds, but I have seen the movement. No one has reported a theft yet, but there are thieves working inside the walls, and you can buy your supper with that. Mark me. Before another week, I'll be summoned to the stone because a band of thieves is breaking into merchants' houses, or even lords' manors. The defenders may guard the streets, but when thieves need tracking, they send for a thief-catcher, and me before any other. I'm not trying to drive up my price, but whatever I do for these pretty women, I must do soon."
Hello, Julin Sandar. He is one of the cooler secondary, tertiary characters.
Yeah, I'd call him tertiary.
Yeah.
But he is cool.
One of the more dangerous men, who carries a bamboo staff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that wood with ridged joints is. It's got to be bamboo. And he wears a conical straw hat and sandals. Sort of, I'm trying to think like...
Raiden?
Raiden, totally.
I always think of the hat just reminds me of that.
I actually had written down Raiden here in the margins. But yeah, he's got this sort of dangerous... And Raiden is a fighter from Mortal Kombat.
He's also a god of thunder in Japanese mythology.
So basically Japanese Thor.
Yes.
The people he's been seeing on the rooftops?
The Aiel.
The Aiel.
Totally.
Someone's going to get robbed soon. It's like, nope. Well, I guess the stone gets robbed soon.
Sort of. Not really. It kind of does its purpose.
They take the fifth.
Yeah, but it's like a lawful robbing. It's like it's taxation, you know? Like, you could call it stealing. But...
Hey, no taxation without representation. Rand steals Kalendor? It's the big theft everyone worries about.
I like that Sandar is kind of excited about this job. He says, "I will admit that I'm curious about these thieves. I've known women thieves, and bands of thieves, but I've never heard of a band of women thieves before, and I owe Mother Gwenna favors." His eyes seemed to record Nynaeve all over again. "What do you charge?" she asked sharply. "To recover stolen goods," he said briskly, "I'll ask the 10th part of the value of what I recover. For finding someone, I ask a silver mark for each person."
I like that he checks out Nynaeve twice.
This is like the 5th time. It's just Egwene mentions that he examined her at least twice when he walked in.
Yeah, he's definitely checking her out.
He's done it like a bunch of times.
No, when he first walked in, he looked at her twice, and here he's just checking her out.
Really wants to remember her face.
Nope. Meanwhile, Mother Gwenna is like, don't trust him. Don't trust him.
Well, she says, he'll tell the truth unless he thinks it will bring him a kiss.
I think Mother Gwenna and Jewel and Sandar were involved at some point in the past. There's a little too much bitterness going on in her.
Something is happening there, but she seems too old for him.
He's pretty middle-aged, and he kind of looks like Oakwood.
Oh, that's true.
I don't think of him as that young. I think of him as like late 40s, early 50s. You know, close. That's why he and Tom get along so well, is they're both sort of older dudes. They call him middle-aged, so, I mean, 40s is kind of what I think.
It's a good theory. Born in 961, Sam Althor says, so that means he's, 47, 48, 47?
You're off by a decade.
Oh, yeah, 37.
37, 38, okay. So middle-aged is still, but we don't really know how old Mother Gwenna is either.
Yeah, it doesn't say. But he seems to be being very generous to them and not really wanting to charge them much. I know a thief-taker, Elaine told him, from Shinar, a very respectful man. He carries a sword, as well as a sword breaker. Why do you not?
And that's, of course, a reference to Huron.
Yeah. And perhaps Elaine being like, can you look at her faces?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening here?
Be
a
respectful.
very respectful man.
Yeah. And he's like,
as opposed to you, I think is what she's saying.
He's being very business-like. He's like, this is what I charge, this is what I do. Let me know these people, I'll find them for you. Bang, bang, bang. Like,
that's true. He is also not like
he's not like, yes,
words
ma'am, whatever you say. Like, he's not bowing and scraping, as Matt would put it.
Yeah, that's true as well. He does seem to be drooling over Nynaeve, though. Elaine says thief-taker. I was reading dialogue.
Oh, okay. Oh, so he definitely looks... Maybe that's why he looks startled, because she calls him a thief-taker.
Oh, in his dialogue, he does call himself a thief-catcher.
Yeah.
And she calls him a thief-taker. Sandar looks startled for a moment, and then upset with himself for being startled. He had not caught her hint, or else had decided to ignore it. I don't know what that refers to exactly.
Oh, the hint? The hint was being very respectful. The emphasis on being very respectful.
Yeah.
That was her hint, is that emphasis.
In reference to not treating her like royalty? Is that what she means? Or in reference to... What did Egwene say? He examined Nynaeve twice.
No, and here later, his eyes refocus on Nynaeve. She shocks him out of it for a second, and then he turns and looks at Nynaeve again.
But in that moment, he explains why he doesn't carry a sword, and basically it'd be that it's illegal. He can't carry a sword because comes from nothing.
Right, and there is a really strong divide between the lower class and the upper class.
Yeah,
you know, there's the people who get into the stone, and there's the people who don't get into the stone. There's the nobles and the common folk, and common folk do not carry swords.
Right. They're not allowed to.
They're not allowed to. And so, like, a foreigner can get away with it because they're not really of the land. They don't really fit into the class structure, but Julian would very quickly be arrested if he were to carry a sword. He would actually be a pretty good cosplay character. With the bamboo staff, you could do either the fez or the hat, maybe both.
The hat would probably be best.
The sword breaker, because, like, then you don't have to worry about having, like, a sword.
Yeah, or just a piece of bamboo, which is free where we come from.
Some clogs.
The defenders do not trouble foreigners much for carrying swords, unless they mean to stay long, of course. But I would be thrust into a cell under the stone. There are laws, mistress. His hand rubbed along his staff, as if unconsciously. I do as well as may be, without a sword. He focused a smile on Nynaeve once more. Now, if you will describe these things... He stopped, as she set her purse on the edge of the table, and counted out 13 silver marks. So without saying anything, she's saying, I want you to find these women. I don't want you to retrieve the stolen goods. You find them, you tell us where they are. That's all. That's what you're hired for.
Because it's too dangerous. I mean, they have tricks. For example, compulsion.
Sure.
And if he got caught, which he does, they could compel him, which they do, to betray the girls, which happens.
Right.
So, you know, she's paying him to not be observed, not be caught, to just figure out where they are and report that information back.
Mm-hmm.
He gets too close.
There are 13 women for you to find, Master Sandar, with as much silver again when you do. Find them, and we will recover our property ourselves. I will do that myself for less than this, he protested, and there's no need for extra rewards. I charge what I charge. Have no fear I'll take a bribe. There is no fear of that, Elwyn agreed. I said he is honest. Just do not believe him if he says he loves you. Sandar glared at her. Yeah, it's either her or one of her daughters.
One of her daughters actually could be, that would make a lot of sense if she's a little bit older. And she has grown daughters. She did say that.
Yeah. I pay the coin, Master Sandar, Nynaeve said firmly. So I choose what I am buying. Will you find these women, and no more? She waited for him to nod, reluctantly, before going on. They may be together, or not. The first is a Tarabonner. She's a little taller than I, with dark eyes and pale, honey-colored hair that she wears in many small braids after the Tarabon fashion. Some men think her pretty.
Leandrin.
But she would not consider it a compliment. She has a mean, sulky mouth. The second is Kandori. She has long black hair, with a white streak above her left ear. And she gave no names, and Sandar asked for none. Names were so easily changed. His smile was gone now that the business was at hand. 13 women she described as he listened intently, and when she was done, Egwene was sure he could have recited them back word for word. And then she warns him again. Mother Gwenna may have told you this, but I will repeat it. These women are more dangerous than you can believe. And she goes on.
And then I like his return line. Oh, I'll act as if they're all Aes Sedai, and Black Ajah at that. He hits right on the nose. It's exactly what they are.
And Egwene almost chokes, I think is what it says.
He's thinking of the most absurd thing he can possibly come up with. It's like, wow, if you're talking about them like this, they must be Black Ajah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, actually...
The girls may be giving away a little too much if Julian can puzzle that out. But it also shows you that he's pretty smart.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't believe it because it's absurd, but...
And he tells a short story here that reminds me a lot of Tom. When he says, "When I was young," Sandar said, voice serious, "a cut purse put her knife in my ribs because I thought a pretty young girl wouldn't be as quick to stab as a man. I do not make that mistake anymore. I will behave as if these women are all Aes Sedai and Black Ajah." Mm-hmm. But yeah, it just reminded me of Tom.
Him and Tom become fast friends.
Yeah. And just in the chapter before this, Matt was like, "Tom, why'd you kill that one?"
Yeah.
It was a woman.
Yep.
And he like lifts up her sleeve and she had been holding a knife.
And he's like, I've learned not to trust women.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll plant a dagger in your ribs just as fast.
Yeah.
And I wish we had a POV from the two of them hanging out at one point, but I don't think we ever do.
You know, they probably just like sit around quietly smoking or whatever. I imagine they like don't talk a lot.
Probably play a lot of games of stones.
Yeah. When he donned his straw hat and clogs and departed by the back door, Elaine said, "I hope he is not overconfident, Elwyn. I heard what he said, but he does understand that they are dangerous, does he not? He has never been a fool, except for a pair of eyes or a pretty ankle," the gray-haired woman said, "and that is a failing of every man. He is the best thief-catcher in Tyr. Have no worry. He will find these dark friends of yours." And then I thought this was significant, but...
Mm-hmm.
"It will rain again before morning," Nynaeve shivered, despite the warmth of the room. "I feel a storm gathering." Elwyn only shook her head and set about filling bowls with fish soup for supper.
2 storms are gathering.
Yes.
There's an actual physical storm, but there's also a storm of events.
It will rain again. And, yes, the storm that Nynaeve habitually senses.
And it's going to break tonight. Everybody arrives, as far as I can tell, everyone arrives in Tyr within about 2 days of each other.
Well,
because
the Supergirls, Matt and Tom, and Perrin all arrive on the same day.
And I think Rand arrives like yesterday, the day.
Oh,
before.
really? He's already there?
Because they had dreams last night that they haven't been having before. And then there's a period of time where they're all in the city for a while. Yeah.
Oh, yes, Aradia. Matt and Tom wander for days looking for the girls, but they're there around now.
They arrive with the storm.
They're already
tonight.
there, yeah.
No, when the storm breaks. It's raining when they arrive.
Right.
And that happens right after this scene. And that night, they see Rand at a distance in Tyr.
The 4 women eat, and Elaine and Nynaeve are kind of biding their time. Nynaeve's talking herbs with Mother Gwenna, and Elaine's doing some embroidery, but Egwene can't focus. She's eager to go to bed and use the terangrial again, the twisted stone ring.
And as she lays down, the thunder rolls across the sky, so that's the beginning.
Yeah.
Of the... And she lays down wondering what the Black Ajah is up to.
As Egwene lay down on a low-posted bed, with them on stools to either side, thunder rolled across the sky. Sleep came slowly. It was the rolling hills again, as always at first. Flowers and butterflies under spring sunshine.
Did we ever figure out where this place was? I think we just assumed it was an ideal...
No, yeah, but she goes here a lot, but who could say? Does anyone have a theory?
Charmy says that Perrin arrives 4 days after everybody else. So they arrive today. Perrin arrive, and then once Perrin arrives, the stone falls. And general agreement in the Discord channel is that it's just a meadow near Two Rivers. As a dreamwalker, I wonder if she has her own little dream shard that she forms that's like her starting place in the world of dreams.
That could easily be true as well. Yeah.
It's just this idealized meadow. It doesn't seem to reflect the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she knows a few rules, like how to travel, which is remarkably like embracing the source. It's like embracing the location is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that she's adopted the...
I would say the mental exercise?
Yeah, that she was taught to use to embrace Saidar, and it uses it to shift in Tarvalin. She empties her mind and focuses on a thing, and then she's there.
It's like the emptying of the mind is really the valuable part of that. And then instead of embracing the source, she fills it with the place she's trying to go.
She pictured the heart of the stone, as she had seen it in these dreams, formed it in every detail, and so on. The columns were there, and Kalendor, and around the sparkling sword, almost as dim and insubstantial as shadows, 13 women sat cross-legged, staring at Kalendor as it revolved. Honey-haired Leandrin turned her head, looking straight at Egwene, with those big, dark eyes, and her rosebud mouth smiled. Gasping, Egwene sat up in bed so fast she almost fell off the side. "What is the matter?" Elaine demanded. "What happened? You look frightened." "You only just close your eyes," Nynaeve said softly. "This is the first time since the very beginning that you've come back without us waking you. Something did happen, didn't it?" She tugged at her braid sharply. "Are you all right?"
So what do you think the women are doing in a circle in Teleron-Riyadh? Do you think they're guarding Kalendor so that Rand can't get to it that way?
I don't know. Are they must, I feel like they must be sicked on it. Like maybe they're guarding it, but on the orders of someone.
Well, Bilal would be my... I mean, they're in the stone with Bilal under his control. And they're part of this trap to get, they're trying to trap the women to bring Rand in. Do you think they have anything to do with the dreams that Bilal is sending out?
No. The other Forsaken seem to be able to do that without help. I almost want to say, this is Lanfear messing with Bilal, or I don't know.
The reason they're insubstantial is because they're using those terangrial that you have to channel into to get there. They're just not as good as the stone terangrial or the regular dream weavers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're sitting around the sword. They're waiting for the girls who they know are coming, or they're waiting for Rand, or they're just guarding the sword from the dream realm of dreams.
I don't know what the purpose is. And if you're guarding something, you don't watch it. You watch what comes near it, right? Like if you were... and a group of people were guarding a thing, wouldn't you sit with your backs to it? Except
they're only guarding it from one person, which is Rand.
Yeah.
And he has to touch it. So by watching the sword, you can, he could just pop in where the sword is and take it and then vanish again. So by watching the sword, they're basically waiting for Rand or someone else, probably just Rand, because he's the only one who could actually touch it and take it. Which leads me to another question. Could Rand take it in the world of dreams?
I would think not, but I have nothing to back that up.
What if he was there in the flesh?
I would think not.
I would think it would disappear back eventually.
Yeah. Otherwise, all the dreamers could just go into Teleran-Riyadh and make stuff and just bring it back out. You could make anything.
Right. I think like the box, it would just magically close or, reappear back in its location.
Right. You could take it and wave it around, but it wouldn't actually.
But
anything.
Rand could travel there in Teleron Riyadh and open a gateway to the real world and then take it.
Yes. But flesh Rand touching real sword, as Aradia put it.
And outside, the storm broke over the city. It's the end of and then we switch over to Matt.
Travis, that's a great catch. We do see Rand at some point trying to touch the sword in Teleron Riyadh, and it doesn't work. I forgot all about that. What was the other thing? Oh, and I wanted to say to JF140, yeah, LTT and Rand are both powerful dreamwalkers. Rand just never developed it and doesn't know what he's doing.
He's got natural skill, but he's not, he never trains. Although you might say that his ability to weave the threads of the pattern have a lot to do with the fact that he's a dreamwalker, able to weave the threads of the dream.
Yeah.
And that he basically sees the world as a dream, in the way the Aiel call it a dream, that they need to wake up from.
I have another long read in. Sorry, not sorry. Rain drumming on the deck over his head. Matt stared at the stones board on the table between him and Tom, but he could not really concentrate on the game, even with an Andorran silver mark riding on the outcome. Thunder crashed, and lightning flashed in the small windows. 4 lamps lit the captain's cabin of the Swift. Bloody ship may be as sleek as the bird, but it's still taking too bloody long. The vessel gave a small jolt, then another. The motion seemed to change. He had better not run us into the bloody mud. If he's not making the best time he can wring out of this butter tub, I will stuff that gold down his throat. Yawning, he had not slept well since leaving Camelin. He could not stop worrying enough to sleep well. Yawning. He set a white stone on the intersection of 2 lines. In 3 moves, he would capture nearly a fifth of Tom's black stones. You could be a good player, boy, the gleeman said around his pipe, placing his next stone. If you put your mind to it. His tabac smelled like leaves and nuts. Matt reached for another stone from the pile at his elbow, then blinked and let it lie. In the same 3 moves, Tom's stone would surround over a third of his. He had not seen it coming, and he could see no escape. Do you ever lose a game? Have you ever lost a game? Tom removed his pipe and knuckled his mustaches. Not in a long while. Morghese used to beat me about half the time. It is said good commanders of soldiers, and good players of the great game, are good at stones as well. She is the one, and I've no doubt she could command a battle, too.
Matt is not quite the general that he will become yet.
Yeah.
He hasn't had the memories implanted, and so he's clever, but he doesn't have the knowledge and the skill and the practice to be a great general yet.
Matt, pre-Fox. I like that. And, maybe by the time he gets to Tom's age, he would be as good or better than Tom at these things.
Sure.
But he's a kid.
He needs experience.
Yeah, which he gets.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's 2 ways to get that in this world. You can either get older, or you can take somebody else's. Which is kind of what Rand does, and Matt, and in some ways Perrin, I think. I don't know if the memories of the wolves ever influence him or help him out. Certainly the instincts of the wolf do.
The instincts, yeah. The captain walks in to the room. The light sear my bones. I do not know why I ever let you hire Swift. You, demanding more flaming speed in the blackest night or the heaviest rain. More speed, always bloody speed.
And the only reason they didn't run up on a mud flat was because of Matt's luck.
Luck. Could have run on a bloody mud flat 100 times over by now. You wanted the gold, Matt said harshly. You said this heap of old boards was fast, Dern. When do we reach Tyr? The captain smiled a tight smile. We are tying off to the dock now.
And he definitely did catch up with the girls, because he's only getting there a few hours after them.
Tom says at some point later, basically, that that was a really fast ship.
Yeah.
That he did get us there. And Matt's just whining
wasn't fast enough.
Why couldn't it have been faster? And Tom's like, because boats don't go faster than that.
No, it's no sea folk ship, boy. I like that he isn't able to take the money off the boatman because the boatman doesn't dice.
Yeah.
And so he actually has to pay the passageway. He's like, darn it, I actually have to pay this guy?
He expected to have accrued gambling debts by then. Or, for others to have accrued gambling debts
right.
to him.
He talks about doing some more experiments with fireworks.
Yeah.
getting them wet ruins them.
Yeah.
An experiment with a bucket had shown that fireworks could not dry out and be as good as new. So that's good to know.
Which is true. Well, we were talking about this in the last episode where Matt cut open a firework, which was a couple episodes ago. I ended up falling down a Google hole and learning a bit about gunpowder. And yes, that's right. If it ever gets damp, even, it might not ever work again.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Is there a chemical change that happens when the water gets in, or is it?
I didn't get that far, but
is it the fact that you get something that's no longer a powder, so it doesn't burn right because the oxygen can't get in there?
That, yeah, I was my assumption that if it gets clumpy, it won't burn right anymore. But also, other things you can get wet and they're just never the same again, you know? Like tobacco. You can get a cigarette wet and dry it out and smoke it, but it tastes like crap. I don't know why. Something happens.
I mean, there's a solution.
Yeah, there's a complex things going on in there.
And
there's all these oils and whatever.
Right. Books also, when you get them wet, you ever getting a book soaking wet and it just inflates?
Yeah.
And then when you dry it out and it just stays inflated, and you're like, "What is this thing?" Or you just get like the bottom of it, and so you have this like wedge-shaped book. And Tom asks him if he's going to sell them, and he's like, "Why would Matt sell the fireworks? He doesn't need the money."
Probably just because he wants them to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Why don't you sell those, kid?
Stop trying to kill us with them.
I'm going to skip ahead to a little bit of dialogue between Matt and the captain. What is this all about, all this flaming speed? A wager, Dern, Matt responds. Yawning, Matt picked up his quarterstaff, ready to go. A wager. A wager? Dern stared at the heavy purse. The other just like it was locked in his money chest. There must be a flaming kingdom riding on it. More than that, Matt said.
The world. Or the lives of 3 women.
And as they're leaving the boat, Matt is insisting, like, all right, let's start looking right now. And Tom's like, it's the night. Like, why don't we just get a room, have some sleep, eat something. We can start in the morning. Like, it's possible Komar got here faster than us, but it's pretty unlikely. And even if he did, do you know how many places there are in this is a whole huge city?
Right. He's not going to find the girls tonight. We're not going to find the girls tonight.
Yeah.
We're not going to find him tonight.
Probably nobody's ever going to find anyone.
Right. We're all going to wander around this gigantic city and never run into each other. Let's go to bed. Follow-up. The reason black pepper, unlike most explosives, which have everything they need, black pepper won't work when
Black powder?
Yes. Black powder. Black pepper won't explode either. Black powder won't explode when you get wet because the salt pepper dissolves in the water and washes out, and that's unnecessary.
The saltpeter. You said salt pepper.
I actually thought it was salt pepper.
Oh, no. It's saltpeter.
Yeah. Yeah, the saltpeter washes out because that dissolves in the water. And then you don't have all the necessary ingredients for an explosion.
I don't even really know what saltpeter is.
I don't either.
Potassium nitrate. Thanks, Google. Tom says there are inns you won't even find, basically.
With only a dozen rooms. Which, I mean, if you think about it, in a major city, a dozen rooms really isn't that many.
Yeah, what kind of a hotel is that?
Yeah. I wouldn't. That's like an Airbnb, basically.
Yeah. They do find an inn, but Matt doesn't want to stay long.
Did you catch the lightning streaked across the sky quote?
Lightning streaked across the sky, 3 jagged bolts together, casting a stark light over a narrow house that seemed to have bunches of herbs hanging in the windows, and a shop shut up tight. No, I didn't even notice this.
You didn't notice that? So that bolt of lightning shows him exactly where the women are staying. He looks up randomly during a bolt of light, and that's
3
the
bolts.
shop. Yep.
How appropriate.
For the 3 girls. 3 jagged bolts together. Here, it's like, where are the women? It's like God pointing at them, you know? Zeus being like, right here.
Matt, looks at the building, and then he says, I think I can forget about this part of the city, Tom. He shouted, all this mud and that stink of fish? Can you see Nynaeve or Egwene or Elaine choosing to stay here? Women like things tidy, Tom, and smelling good. Maybe, boy, Tom muttered, then coughed. You would be surprised what women will put up with. But it may be.
I think that Tom's cough is the pattern trying to get Matt to find the girls.
I like that.
That the longer he goes without finding him, the worse the cough gets, until he finally takes him to Mother Gwenna to get healed. There's just so many arrows pointing Matt at that shop that if he just trusted his luck and let it take him where he was supposed to go, he'd just be there. And I think that's a big part of later Matt, as opposed to early Matt, is later Matt trusts his luck. He learns how to use it to make things random so that good things happen.
Yeah, he's just starting to figure it out now. That's how he finds Komar.
Right.
He's just starting to figure it out.
And with the dice, he's realizing how, it didn't work when he was playing stones with Tom, but it works great with dice that are random.
Yeah, because stones aren't random,
No. But it's such a great little foreshadowing there. He even thinks about it later when he finds the place, and he hears about the women. He's like, "You blind fool, you even saw the place. What could be more random than a place you got off the boat in the middle of the night and you saw in a random lightning streak? That would have been perfect."
Tom and Matt stop at the inn called the White Crescent, which had a landlord whose girth made his long blue coat fit snugly below the waist as well as above. So that's good. There's a fellow playing a hammered dulcimer in the corner, and Tom kind of scoffs at him. Tom eyed the fellow critically and shook his head. Because they basically get into the inn, eat something, and then Matt throws his stuff in his room and goes right back out.
Notice that the owner of the White Crescent is fat.
Mm-hmm.
Trusty innkeeper.
They go marching through the streets, stopping at every inn that they pass.
They get so tired that they just stopping at every inn and just randomly walk into one.
Yeah, Tom's like, "Do you know how many inns you just walked past?" And
the key, of course, being randomly.
Yeah.
Walking into one.
One more, Tom. If we don't find them here, we'll go back and go to bed.
It's always the last inn.
2 steps into the common room, Matt saw him. The big man wore a green coat with blue stripes down puffy sleeves, but it was Komar. Close-cut black beard with a white streak over his chin and all.
And Komar never saw Matt in Camelin.
Right.
Because he wasn't in the chamber when Matt went and talked to the king.
Komar doesn't know who he is.
Ravine.
We see Komar here using weighted dice to beat people in gambling, and everybody kind of knows what's happening by the time the last guy's beaten. But nobody is willing to say anything to him because has rich clothing on and is wearing a sword. So they're like, if he can afford to do that, then if we call the cops on them, the cops will just take us to jail, essentially, is what the innkeeper says in this particular inn.
Yeah, although I think the innkeeper does say, he's got this crazy luck. I don't know. He doesn't realize it's weighted dice at first.
Yeah.
Tom has to tell him, yep, those are weighted dice.
And Tom does a little demonstration to show how it's done.
Just like how you swap the weighted dice out for the real dice so that your opponent rolls with real dice and you roll with the weighted dice.
Yeah.
And he just, always happens to win on those. Whenever it gets big enough, he just rolls that 3 6s and 2 5s. So there's only 2 rolls better than that, right?
Right.
4 6s and 1 5, or all 6s.
And this is a couple of pages here where they're sitting and talking to the innkeeper, and Matt's like, "Who's that guy over there?" And they have this song. Basically, we just broke all that down. Tom does the demonstration to show what's happening. And then Matt says, "Look, we can prove it. Why don't you just call the defenders, the cops, essentially?" And the guy's like, "Nope, we don't do that here.
No, we're not high class enough. We're low class. They wouldn't. He's a foreigner with money. They would take his word over ours any day."
Yeah, just for how he looks.
Yep. And so Matt does his little money talks demonstration where he sits down and Komar's like, "Farmer, well, get out of here." And he puts down a gold coin and he's like, "Farmer, have a seat."
I'm just going to read this whole thing. Komar studied Matt's coat and grinned nastily. "You want to wager coppers, farmer? I do not waste my time with—" He cut off as Matt set an Andorran gold crown on the table and yawned at him, making no effort to cover his mouth. "You say little, farmer, though your manners could use improving. But gold has a voice of its own, and no need of manners." He shook the leather cup in his hand and spilled the dice out. He was chuckling before they came to rest, showing 3 crowns and 2 roses. "You'll not beat that, farmer. Perhaps you have more gold hidden in those rags that you want to lose. What did you do? Rob your master?" He reached for the dice, but Matt scooped them up ahead of him. Komar glared, but let him have the cup. If both tosses were the same, they would throw again until one man won. Matt smiled as he rattled the dice. He did not mean to give Komar a chance to change them. If they threw the same toss 3 or 4 times in a row, exactly the same, every time, even the defenders would listen. The whole common room would see. They would have to back his word. He spilled the dice onto the tabletop. They bounced oddly. He felt something, shifting. It was as if his luck had gone wild. The room seemed to be writhing around him, tugging at the dice with threads. For some reason, he wanted to look at the door, but he kept his eyes on the dice. They came to rest. 5 crowns. Komar's eyes looked ready to pop out of his head. "You lose," Matt said softly. If his luck was in to this extent, perhaps it was time to push it. A voice in the back of his head told him to think, but he was too tired to listen. "I think your luck is about used up, Komar. If you've harmed those girls, it's all gone." "I have not even found," Komar began, still staring at the dice, then jerked his head up. His face had gone white. "How do you know my name?" He had not found them, yet. Luck, sweet luck, stay with me, he thinks. Go back to Camelin, Komar. Tell Gabriel you could not find them. Tell him they are dead. Tell him anything, but leave Deer tonight. If I see you again, I'll kill you. "Who are you?" the big man said unsteadily. "Who?" The next instant, his sword was out, and he was on his feet. Matt shoved the table at him, overturning it, and grabbed for his quarterstaff. He had forgotten how big Komar was. The bearded man pushed the table right back at him. Matt fell over, with his chair, holding a bare grasp on his staff, as Komar heaved the table out of the way and stabbed at him. Matt threw his feet against the man's middle to stop his rush, swung the staff awkwardly, just enough to deflect the sword. But the blow knocked his staff from his fingers, and he found himself gripping Komar's wrist instead, with the man's blade a hand from his face. With a grunt, he rolled backwards, heaving as hard as he could with his legs. Komar's eyes widened as he sailed over Matt to crash onto a table, face up. Matt scrambled for his staff, but when he had it, Komar had not moved. The big man lay with his hips and legs sprawled across the top of the table, the rest of him hanging down with his head on the floor. The men who had been sitting on the table were on their feet, a safe distance away, wringing their hands and eyeing each other nervously. A low, worried buzz filled the common room, not the noise Matt expected. So, to be clear, what RJ's describing is Komar's legs and hips are laying on the table, and his back is at a right angle. He would be face up if he wasn't bent a way that people don't bend. Like if you were to lay down on a table face up, right? And then scoot so just your butt was still on the table and lay back as much as you could. You can only you can only arc your back so much. Back around toward your feet. Komar's laying, his face is on the floor, but his pelvis is up. So he's at a right angle, feet pointing at the ceiling. His back's broken.
Yeah, his back's broken.
Death yoga. I like that, Ferengi.
Question from the beginning of the reading.
Yeah. And the cover just fell off the Dragon Reborn. Good thing there's only a couple of chapters left.
There's a couple of things going on when he rolls the dice. One, it's that odd bounce and something shifting, which I think is just his luck at play.
Yeah, well, I don't know that this is right, but I interpreted that as they bounced oddly because they're weighted, so they're moving in a way that they really shouldn't.
But then his luck causes them to bounce
and then
really oddly.
He felt something shifting, and they land in a way that's totally improbable.
Right, because I have a question. Are weighted dice always going to land in the way they're weighted, or just usually land in the way they're weighted?
I would say only usually, but I don't really know how this works.
And then the other really big question I have in that paragraph is it says for some reason he wanted to look at the door when this is all happening.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure anything out. I was reading, and there was nothing at the door when they left. I couldn't figure out what was going on. But I really like Khansma had a suggestion that maybe Rand walked by, and that maybe that warping and Tavir and stuff, because we know Rand's in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And we know he's in the area because does Matt see him? Or anyway, we know he's in the area. And so the idea that he's walking by and that warping and weird twisting is a combination of the two Taviran effects makes a lot of sense to me. And that's why he wants to look at the door.
Is Perrin in the city yet?
No, Perrin doesn't arrive for 4 more days.
Oh, okay.
And we know Rand's in the city because of the dreams people were having last night. The dreams tell us where that Rand is in the city.
What's his what do we say that Rand's like sphere of Taviran influence? How big is it?
A couple. I mean, it's affecting the whole world.
Yeah.
But the direct effects that seem to, twist around him only seem to affect one town at a time. So think like less than a day's travel. So my assumption is, if he's either in the city or within a day's travel of it. And since he's traveling so quickly, basically the same thing.
Sure. I mean, it's as good a theory as any. I don't know why he wants to look at the door.
And when Matt goes to sleep, we see him dream of Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And those are Rand's dreams that are reflecting that he's giving off because he's not shielding. And then he tricks the admission out of Komar. In his shock of losing, he's like, "You've hurt those girls." He's like, "I haven't even found them." Wait, how do you know about that? Oh, that was clever.
The innkeeper says to Matt, "You must go. You must." I thought this was really weird. "Before the defenders come, I will show them the dice. I will tell them it was an outlander, but a tall man, with red-colored hair and gray eyes. No one will suffer. A man I dreamed of last night.
Right.
No one real."
So that's my proof that Rand is in the city. Because he only had that dream starting last night when Rand arrived in the city.
I dig it. It's as good a proof as any. I mean, other than a direct Rand chapter where we actually see him, or like,
Sure. Or someone getting, someone saying, "Oh, there was an unusual number of marriages," or something like that going on.
Yeah.
But as best as I can tell, that's my proof that Rand has been in the city for at least a day. And probably only a day. He probably got there last night because that's the first time anyone had dreams of him.
Yeah.
They've been dreaming of Bilal for ages.
No one thinks that's weird anymore. Next thing I have is Matt saying, "It's the luck," Matt mumbled. "I figured it out. The dice. My luck works best when things are random, like dice. Not much good for cards. No good at stones. Too much pattern. It has to be random."
So he's starting to figure out the rules.
Yeah.
The rules of the luck. If I'm going to find Egwene and the others in time, I have to look without any pattern. And so they do that for 3 days and nights while the rain's going.
That's right.
And this is how we know that Perrin arrives 4 days later, because he arrives after the weather is cleared up.
Dawn was not long in coming, meaning they were out really late.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt rousted himself out of bed, and he and Tom set off trying to search every inn inside the walls of Tyr. Matt let himself wander wherever the mood and the next turning took him, not looking for inns at all, and tossing a coin to decide whether to go in. For 3 days and nights he did this, and for 3 days and nights it rained without stopping, sometimes thundering, sometimes quiet, but always pouring down. Tom's cough grew worse, so he had to stop playing the flute and telling stories, and he would not carry his harp out in that weather. He insisted on going along, however, and men still talked to a gleeman. Matt's luck with the dice seemed even better since he had begun this random wander, though he never stayed in one inn or tavern long enough to win more than a few coins. Neither of them heard anything useful. Rumors of war with Ilion, rumors of invading Mayene, rumors of invasion from Andor, of the sea folk shutting off trade, of Artur Hawkwing's armies returning from the dead, rumors the dragon was coming. The men Matt gambled with were as gloomy about one rumor as the next. They seemed to him to hunt for the darkest rumors they could find, and half believe them all. But he heard not a whisper that might lead him to Egwene and the others. Not one innkeeper had seen women matching their descriptions. He began to have bad dreams, no doubt from all his worrying. Egwene and Nynaeve and Elaine, and some fellow with close-cropped white hair, wearing a coat with puffy, striped sleeves like Komar's, laughing and weaving a net around them.
Bilal the net weaver.
Nodding. Only sometimes it was Moraine he was weaving the net for, and sometimes he held a crystal sword instead, a sword that blazed like the sun as soon as he touched it. Sometimes it was Rand who held the sword. For some reason, he dreamed of Rand a good deal. Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, I think because Rand's in the city and giving off his own unprotected dreams.
Matt was sure it was all because he was not getting enough sleep, not eating except when he happened to remember. But he would not stop. He had a wager to win, he told himself, and he meant to win this one if it killed him.
Matt, you're dicing with the dark one. I wonder, it says Matt's luck with the dice seemed even better since he began his random wander. I wonder if just randomly wandering amps his, by being random, he's amping his luck up.
I could speculate. I don't really know, but, maybe just an element of being in the right place at the right time and walking into a random inn where a guy just happens to be, at the top of his luck and betting a lot of money, just lucky place, time. I feel like being in random places is more likely to lead him to the best place.
Right.
Which is places where he'll win even more.
That's a good point.
I don't know. Do you know? Because I don't. That's what I'm saying. I'm just speculating.
So yeah, it seems to be that glance at the door has sparked more argument and speculation and interest than many comments that we've read in a while. So if you have a theory, let us know. I'd love to hear all the theories about why, when the luck was particularly strong, Matt felt an urge to look at the door.
I had that thought as well, Bambi. If not Rand, Julian? Julian could have been walking by at that moment. Julian and Mother Gwenna could have been walking by. Because they, just walked by where her house is. But I don't know. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, Bambi. Who could have walked past the door? Could be Rand. Could be Julian and Gwenna. Could be Gaul. Could be Avienda. Could be Avienda. There's a ton of people in tier right
true.
now.
Yeah, it really could be anybody.
Everyone is converging right now. It could be Lanfear or Bilal. It could be some shadow spawn keeping an eye on Komar. I'll start alphabetically. Yeah, everyone is in town. Almost everyone is in town. There's a couple of stragglers that aren't quite there yet, I think.
Right, well, the whole Perrin Moraine Lan group hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah, they're on their way.
But I think they are the last. The girls are there. The Aiel are there.
We assume Rand is there.
The Forsaken are there. Black Hotjaw is there.
The Aiel, did you say the Aiel already?
I think I said the Aiel. I mean, and now we just have to name categories. We can't even name individuals. There's just gigantic groups of people in this city, all brought together by Taviran or Charmy. That's what we do.
That is kind of what we do.
We overcomplicate things.
I should say, all of you out there who are listening and don't follow us at all on any kind of internet medias, Discord, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you could just go follow us and like our stuff, it would give us a really big boost. And we could probably get a bunch more people to listen. And that makes a really big difference to us, especially since we're just under the bracket.
We've been hovering at this borderline for a while, and we keep trying to push over it. And every month it seems like we're getting close, and then just at the end of the month it seems to dip a little bit for various reasons. So, but if you can go out there and support us with a rating, a review.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, come.
iTunes.
Like our pages.
Yeah. We'd really appreciate that.
Sam Althor says, "We come, brothers, through the world of dreams. I mean the internet."
This is our mental summoning. The time for battle is at hand. They have caged Shadow Killer.
We are steadily crawling, very slowly, closer and closer to making a living podcasting. Crawling.
And we're definitely spending some time looking at the TV show and gambling a little bit on the success of the TV show.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to change anything we do, really. Although we've discussed making one recording for each show. What do we do? Like, watch the show and just record?
Yeah.
Do we watch the show live in Discord and record?
Yeah.
And just talk about it while
Yeah.
we go.
Well,
we'll just have to
doing it.
pause it a ton while
I
we
guess.
talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on, like, are they going to release a whole season at once?
I don't know. Well, I mean, in that case, we'll just, whatever. If we can figure it out, we could scrape it together enough time to make an episode a week.
Can you guys hear Timber whining in the background?
Timber's staring through the bottom of the table at the pizza that's on the table.
He wants pizza so bad.
We could do a thing. I mean, we'll probably just... I'm responding to JF140.
What's a sync track? Is that where we comment over the...
Oh, like as you're watching, you can listen to us talk? I mean, we could do something like that, but it would honestly be a ton of work to edit it into... That probably won't happen. But there will be... Yeah? Well, Seth is giving me a skeptical look.
I mean,
like
I don't
maybe
think it
you
would
could
be
do
that hard to
fairly
edit.
easy.
It would probably be low editing. We just record ourselves while watching it with headphones in.
Yeah, but I don't know. Well, okay, I'm not against it, but my thought was that we would have to pause it because we're going to have too much shit to say. We're going to have so much shit to say that we'll be missing dialogue while we're talking.
That's why I'm thinking we watch it once, making notes.
Okay.
And then we do a second watch through with commentary. But we're like, we won't be able to comment accurately unless we've already seen it once because we're going to be too busy talking.
Yeah, although, I mean, it would be really fun to just sit in Discord with you guys and watch, like, we'll pick a random night and be like, tonight's episode 1, like we're watching it.
Sure.
And just do this live, like the same kind of thing that we do, and we'll be able to get some of what you guys say and what we say. And
it also depends on the quality. I mean, if it's Legend of the Seeker, we have to MST3K it. Like, there may be... Or if it's really good, we may want to analyze it. It depends on how much it's going to be Winter Dragon quality or Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter quality.
Exactly, JF140. And then I'll spend an hour and a half arguing that Nynaeve shot first. That can be its own episode.
Oh, God.
I just like it. I just want that to be true.
It would be really exciting if, like, the TV show implied that.
I want to believe. Yeah, or trash it. I kind of figure it'll at least be good, If it's being produced by a big company like Amazon, there should be plenty of money, and Rafe has worked on other big name projects, so I can't imagine he'll do a terrible job as a writer. But of course, there's way more that goes into it than that. Like that you started using my Ulu to cut pizza.
It's like the ideal tool.
Yeah, it's a great tool. That's why I just started leaving it in the kitchen. It's great for cutting things.
What is it for?
Everything. It's just an all-purpose knife. The shape comes from like Inuit culture. If you look at it, the shape is like it's a hand axe. It's the hand axe that you read about in your history book in high school. It's just only has a hand, like a handle that you grip in your hand.
Well, it's perfect for like downward pressure. And then it's got the curves on the edge, so I can rock it back and forth. So it's like pizza cutting perfection.
Yeah, I just have a knife with a very curved blade, essentially, is what it is. A friend got it for me as a gift. Anyway.
My issue with scissors is you have to get them under the pizza, and I always end up like messing the pizza up that way. I want to leave it flat on the board.
I like Aradia's suggestion the best. You can cut pizza with your face.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?